Hey friends, welcome back. I'm Sam and welcome if you are new. Today I'm cooking up 3 easy and delicious side dishes that you and your family are going to enjoy. So let's get to cooking. Alright you guys, this week is all about side dishes. So I'm going to show you a few of my favorite side dishes that I love to cook during the holiday season. They are so easy and absolutely delicious. We're going to start out with one of my favorites, and this is maple roasted butternut squash. Very few ingredients, but absolutely delicious. So I've got one whole butternut squash here that I've just peeled and seeded and then cut into kind of 1-inch rings, but you can cut them however you want. I just think they look a little bit more pretty this way, but cubes will do just fine. So I'm just going to go in and drizzle this with a little bit of olive oil. Make sure they are nice and coated with olive oil. And I've got half of a cup of maple syrup here. Now I'm only going to use 1/4 of a cup of this now. And I'm just going to lightly drizzle this over the squash. And then we will reserve the other 1/4 of a cup for later when we flip them over, and we'll brush some more of this maple syrup on top. It's going to be so good. Now I'm just going to season these up. I'm going to add some salt. And I've got my oven preheated to 425 degrees. Now I'm just going to add some pepper, a little bit of thyme for a little bit of earthiness. I love thyme and butternut squash together. It is so, so good. And we're going to add some cinnamon, just about 2 teaspoons or so, and some nutmeg. The cinnamon and the nutmeg are going to give it such a warmth flavor. And all I'm going to do now is just kind of toss this all together. Make sure that butternut squash is all combined with that seasoning and that olive oil. Make sure they're all nice and coated. It will take me just a second, but we will get it done. And then we're just going to spread this out evenly on this pan. And then we will get these in the oven. This smells like fall already, and I haven't even started baking it yet. So I've got all of these laid out here as best as I can. If you have a smaller sheet pan than I do, you can just go ahead and use 2 of them. It will work just fine. So I've got that on there. I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands, and then we'll get these in the oven. All right, so we are going to put these in the oven for about 15 minutes, and then we'll pull them out, baste them, flip them over, and put them back in the oven. All right, these have been cooking for 15 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and just flip these over to the other side. All right, they are all flipped over. So now I'm just going to baste them with some maple syrup over the top, and it's just going to help them get nice and caramelized on the top. And then we will put these back in the oven for another 15 to 20 minutes. And then if we need to, we will repeat the process and then cook them another few more minutes until they're tender. So I'm just going to finish this up, pop them back in the oven, 15 minutes, check and see if they are done. All right, guys, these are done. They are nice and tender. They smell absolutely delicious. So I'm just going to let these sit and hang out for about 5 minutes or so, and then I'm going to transfer them to a serving platter. All right, you guys, here is this wonderful maple roasted butternut squash. If you love butternut squash, you are going to love this. It's slightly sweet with that maple syrup, plus the butternut squash itself is sweet. And then I just topped it with a little bit of freshly chopped parsley. So, so good. Okay, next up we're going to be making candied sweet potatoes. I think I cook these every year for either Thanksgiving or Christmas. Sometimes I actually cook them at Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I'm going to show you how I make those today. So we're going to start out. I've got about 3 large potatoes, sweet potatoes, that I just diced up in about a 1/2 inch slices. You can do these in cubes if you want. And then I just got them in a greased baking dish. I just have a little bitty dish here that I've got greased. So to my bowl here, I've got 1 cup of sugar. And to this, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. We're going to do about a 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon of cinnamon. If you like cinnamon, you can add more if you like. Then we're going to do a 1/2 cup of water. About a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm using a kosher salt, but if you're using like a table salt, you can do, I would half that and do a 1/4 teaspoon. Now we're just going to add in some vanilla, however much you like. And I'm just going to whisk this together until it's pretty well combined and that cornstarch is mixed in with that water. Before I add this to my potatoes, I want to add a little bit of butter to the top of this, and it's going to melt down and get all nice and delicious. So you're going to need about a 1/4 cup of butter. I'm just going to do just a few little pats of butter here, and it's going to melt down into those sweet potatoes and just get delicious. So I'm just going to add that right on top, and that looks pretty good. And now I'm just going to pour over this sauce. Make sure it's nice and well mixed because that sugar will settle. And I'm just going to pour this right over the top. You don't have to stir this up or anything. It's going to cook down while it's in the oven. All right, so I'm just going to add the lid. I'm going to put this in a 350-degree oven for about 30 minutes, covered. And then I'm going to take it out, remove the lid, put it back in for another 20 to 30 minutes, just until all of these potatoes are nice and tender. All right, these have been cooking for about 30 minutes. They are not anywhere near done yet, but I'm going to go ahead and give these a little stir, and then we'll put these back in the oven for about 30 minutes. I'm going to make sure I get them all down into that liquid, and it's going to help them cook and get tender. That looks pretty good. So these are going to go back in the oven until they are nice and tender. It should take anywhere between 30 to 40 minutes. Okay, these have been cooking for about 40 minutes, and it smells absolutely delicious in here. I'm just going to give these another little toss. I want to be careful not to break these up any, because I want them to be left whole in the slice form. This smells so good. It reminds me of my grandmother's kitchen when I would go visit her when I was a little girl. She would always have some style of a sweet potato, either cooking or just freshly cooked, in her kitchen all the time. So some of these are not quite done yet. So I'm just going to push the ones that are not quite tender down to the bottom and move the more tender ones up to the top. And I'm going to put these back in the oven for another 10 to 12 minutes just to soften up those potatoes. And this should be done. All right, these are done. They are fork tender. I'm just going to cover these up with the lid, let them hang out and cool down. Then these will be ready to serve. It smells absolutely delicious. Oh my gosh, you guys, these sweet potatoes are so good. If you want something that is nostalgic in flavor, these are it. Especially if you love sweet potatoes, these are so good. All right, you guys, last up are my caramelized roasted vegetables. These are so easy, so delicious, and you can exchange any of these vegetables for whatever vegetables that you like. It works so well with any vegetable, any root vegetable. So, to my tray here, I've just got some parchment paper, and I've got my oven preheated to 400 degrees. On my tray here, I've got some carrots. Now, the bigger ones, I just kind of sliced in half, and then the smaller ones I left whole, and then I just trimmed the tips and the top, and then just put them on my tray here. I've got some potatoes, and I just washed them really well and then cut them into cubes. I've got an onion and some celery. So to this, I'm going to drizzle on some olive oil. And I'm going to season this up with some brown sugar. Now the brown sugar is going to melt down and it's going to caramelize all over these vegetables, and it's just going to be absolutely delicious. Now you don't need too much of this brown sugar, just enough to kind of sweeten up all of the vegetables. Probably about a quarter of a cup. And to this, I'm going to add some paprika for a little bit of smokiness, some thyme, which pairs well with all of these vegetables. And I'm going to season it with a little bit of nature seasoning. Just be careful when you add this because we're going to be adding some salt. So when you add your salt, you want to go a little bit of a light hand with that. Or you can just skip it in general. And we're going to add some pepper. And now we're just going to toss all of this together and make sure each vegetable is nice and coated in all of that seasoning. And kind of spread them out a little bit. All right, these are going to go in a 400-degree oven for about 20 minutes. I'm going to take them out, kind of toss these together, put them back in the oven, and let them cook for another 20 to 30 minutes, just until all of these vegetables are tender. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you what they look like when they get done. Oh my goodness, these look so good. So I'm going to check these for doneness. If they are not tender, I'll put these back in the oven for another 10 to 12 minutes. So I'm just going to use a fork and check the potatoes. They're not quite done yet. So these are going to go back in the oven. I can take off the celery and the onions, and the carrots look pretty good. So I'll probably take those off and then just put the potatoes back in the oven for another 15 to 20 minutes. All right, these are done and they are nice and tender. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add my carrots, onion, and my celery back to these potatoes and kind of mix them all together. And look at that crispy crust. There is nothing like a good crispy potato. So I'm just going to add all the vegetables back together, give it a little toss, then I'm going to plate it up and it'll be ready for serving. All right, here are these yummy roasted vegetables. Do these not look absolutely delicious? They are so good. Not only are they perfect for your everyday table, they are great for any holiday table. It's just a lighter version of some roasted vegetables that you can add as a delicious side dish to any meal. So that is going to wrap up this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Leave me a comment in the comment section down below. And don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.